Hello, everybody. Today we've got the first prediction for the 2026 U.S. Senate elections. And given that we're more than a year away from the primaries, it's super early. A ton is going to change. But I think a lot of people enjoy predictions, so we're going to dive in. Now, as of right now, Democrats would need to flip 4 seats to outright control the chamber. It's not really a great map for the Dems. However, the national environment is expected to favor the party out of power by a little bit. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's just the conventional wisdom. Now, a couple of quick things before we get to the ratings. A lot is going to change between now and the primaries, and then between the primaries and election day. There's going to be more retirements. There could always be a death in office. There could be a resignation. There could be in-party fighting, and there's going to be a lot of candidates that are watching right now deciding if they should get into the race or not. They've got a lot of time to figure it out, and the national environment is going to be key. It could be a blue wave, or it could be more like in 2022, where the party in the White House minimized the losses. Or back in 2018, during the first Trump term, that was technically a blue wave, but in the U.S. Senate, Republicans actually gained seats. So be prepared for things to change. A lot of these ratings are going to be borderline and up for debate. So obviously your map is going to look a little bit different. Now let's go through this. There's not a lot of states that are really in competitive territory, but we're going to start with the safe states. And normally these are expected to be 10 or more point margins. However, this far out, I would also express that in terms of confidence. So safe also means as of right now, it's not expected to be competitive. But again, once something changes, the rating will be adjusted later on. Now we'll start with the Democrats. We'll go West Coast to East. First, we've got Oregon. There's nothing really to say here. If Jeff Merkley decides to retire, this should still be a safe hold for the Dems. East, we've got Colorado. Should be a pretty easy hold here for John Hickenlooper. Then in the Midwest, we've got Illinois. Here we've got Dick Durbin. He could decide to retire. Whether he does or he doesn't, I think is irrelevant. This should be a fairly comfortable hold for the Dems. Then in the East Coast, we've got Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, and Delaware. And these are going to be similar. If the incumbents decide to run, they're going to be easy holds. If they decide to retire, also probably going to be easy holds. Now let's take a look at the Republican states. Let's start in Alaska. For now, this is going to be safe. I'm assuming Republican Dan Sullivan is going to run again. If it's not him, then this should be a little bit more competitive. But the Dems would have to put up a strong candidate. They could be looking at Mary Peltola, who just lost her re-election bid in the U.S. House. She's likely to be their best bet, but it's unclear if she's going to try again for the House or if she's going to try to go for the Senate, maybe governor. If she declared for the Senate, then I would take this down to likely. But at this point, the most reasonable thing is to keep it at safe. Next, we've got Idaho with Jim Risch. This should be an easy hold for the Republicans. Then we've got Montana. There are scenarios where this state could be competitive. They just had John Tester in there for 3 terms. They've also recently done it for governor, so a Democrat here is not a foreign concept. But for now, Steve Daines, if he runs again, he should be heavily favored, so that's why it's going to go safe. Continuing with the safe states, we've got Wyoming, South Dakota, and Nebraska. This is also going to go safe. Independent candidate Dan Osborne could make another run here against Pete Ricketts. Osborne put himself on the map running against Fisher in the last election, but I think Ricketts is a stronger candidate. So for now, this is easily going to stay safe. Then we've got Kansas. If Laura Kelly decided to challenge Roger Marshall, that would make this more competitive. But until things change and this is going to be safe, then we've also got Oklahoma. And then we've got Texas. And Texas is going to go safe, but this is borderline. Here we're looking at John Cornyn, the more establishment-friendly Republican incumbent. He might get a challenge from Attorney General Ken Paxton. Paxton would be more controversial, and this would immediately come down to likely. There's no guarantee even Cornyn would win by 10. But looking at Ted Cruz in the last election, who appeared to be weaker than Cornyn, his comfortable victory makes me think this would start off as just over a 10-point and reasonably confident margin of victory. It's unclear who the Dems would put up here, but unless it turns into 2018 again, the Dems would be wise to put the resources into other states. Next, the other safe states for the Republicans are going to be Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and West Virginia. Not much to say about any of those. In Kentucky, it's going to be somebody other than McConnell for the Republicans. If Andy Beshear changes his mind and runs for the Senate, then there's at least a discussion to be had about taking this down to likely. In South Carolina, Lindsey Graham is not guaranteed to win that by over 10 points, but this far out, he's the easy favorite. These are red states. These ratings are not controversial. We've got one more safe state, though. We've got Florida. Now, this looks like it's going to be Ashley Moody who is appointed to this seat, so there's a special election here. And I don't know about you, but in the last few elections, I'm kind of tired of underestimating the Republican support here. I haven't vastly underestimated them, but they have overperformed my expectations by 3 to 5 25 points, so I would normally put this at likely. But the state has gotten so red, the Dems have little bench here. Maybe they put something together and it gets under 10, but for now, this is going to start off as safe. Now we'll go down to likely states. These would be expected to be between 5 and 10 point margins or have an outside chance of being competitive. We'll start with the Democrats. First in the Southwest, New Mexico. This would be incumbent Democrat Ben Ray Lujan if he decides to run again. He's young, I'm assuming he will. He won his last race in 2020 by about 6 points, so it is kind of borderline likely safe. Republicans don't have a lot going on here, but we'll say this just dips down into likely territory. Now we'll go north and east. We've got Minnesota. This is borderline lean likely, and it is an open seat because Tina Smith is not running again. However, the Dems have a bench here, and I would think if Angie Craig gets into the race, this would be an easy hold. On the other side, it looks like Royce White is going to be running again for the Republicans. He just took a loss, and he doesn't seem like a candidate that's going to have broad enough support. So this could get competitive. I think it's close to that status right now. But for now, I think it's just on the other side of that, as I expect Dems to moderately hold on to this seat. Then in the Northeast, we've got New Hampshire. Here we might have incumbent Democrat Jeanne Shaheen. If she ran again, I don't see a big reason as to why she would not be the clear favorite. Former Governor Sununu has already decided he's not going to run. Of course, he could change his mind. Maybe Scott Brown from Massachusetts makes another run here. Something could change, but for now, this is going to be likely D. Finally, we've got Virginia. As of now, I'm expecting this to be Mark Warner for the Dems. So I thought about starting this off at safe, but it's not the bluest state out there. Even back in 2014, Mark Warner came close to losing his re-election. So this is right around 9.5, 10.5 points. If Governor Youngkin decides to run for the GOP, then of course this is going to come down a handful of points, maybe even into lean D territory. But for now, it's close to safe, but we'll put it at likely. Now, the likely states for the GOP. First, we've got Iowa. This is similar to Virginia. I'm expecting it to be Joni Ernst. The state is pretty red. The Dems don't have a strong bench here. You can put it at safe, but out of caution, I'm going to put it at likely. It's going to be the same thing in Ohio. This is another special election. This is to finish the remainder of the term of J.D. Vance. It's John Husted who is appointed to this seat. Now, he hasn't said he's going to run for the remainder of this term, and he could face a primary challenge. But it's pretty safe to say here this state is also fairly red. Pretty much any Republican is going to be moderately favored. So this is another high single-digit, moderately high level of confidence. But for now, we're just going to put it at likely. We'll go down to the lean states. These would normally be under 5-point margins and are expected to be competitive. We've got one state. We're going to go to Maine. This is the Susan Collins seat. She's been in there a while, but she's considered vulnerable. Collins needs some crossover vote because the state does lean blue, but she has an established track record, and back in 2020, the polling vastly underestimated Collins. It looked like she was headed for defeat, but she won it very comfortably. Now, the Dems have some candidates they could put up here. Maybe it's Jared Golden, maybe it's Governor Janet Mills. It's too early to speculate, but for now, I think it's pretty easy for me to at least give Collins the edge. There could be a big battle shaping up here in a year and a half, but for now, this is going to go lean for the Republicans. Now we've got 3 states left. Let's start in Michigan. This is an open seat to replace Democrat Gary Peters. Trump won the state a few months ago, but in the Senate, Alyssa Slotkin squeaked it out for the Dems. There's a big bench here for the Dems. They might be looking at Pete Buttigieg, but he's going to face some accusations of carpetbagging. Republicans have a lot less of a bench. They might be looking at their nominee from 2024, Mike Rogers. He did take the loss, but he's fresh in everybody's mind, and he just barely came out on the bottom. He did better than I thought he would in the last election. So this is a fairly purple state, and the seat is up for grabs. But at this point, since I don't do toss-ups, I have to give it to the Dems by a tilt margin till we see what happens. Now let's go to North Carolina. Here we're looking at Tom Tillis, the Republican. It's possible he faces a primary challenge. We'll see if that actually happens. But the Dems here might be looking at Wiley Nickel, or they could be looking at former Governor Roy Cooper. Either way, the race should be competitive. This in Maine are the Democrats' real only 2 opportunities at flipping seats. But because it's just too far out, I've got to default and to give Tillis the edge. So this is going to go tilt for the Republicans. Finally, we've got Georgia. This is also going to be a massive battle, just like it was in the past few Senate elections. Here we're looking at Democrat Jon Ossoff. Trump just won it in 24, and Republicans did have success in the statewide elections in 22. But both Senate seats are held by Democrats. Biden won it in 20, and the Atlanta suburbs have moved hard toward the left. And if the national environment does favor the Dems, it could be tough for Republicans to flip this seat. But Republicans might have an ace up their sleeve. That's going to be Governor Brian Kemp. He has been popular, and he's term limited out of office also in 26. He's not announced his intent to run, but there's a lot of speculation. If he does, then Kemp could be the slight favorite. It doesn't mean he's going to win, but that is by far the Republicans' best chance here. Now, without Kemp, it's not impossible Republicans can flip this seat, but without Kemp, it seems like it would be a real challenge. So because we don't have enough information yet, and Kemp has not declared, the initial rating here is going to be a tilt for Ossoff and the Dems. So that's it. That would result in 53 seats for the Republicans and 47 for the Dems. Of course, that includes 2 independents, Democrats with their caucus, and actually no seats would flip in this initial prediction. Very few seats are actually in play. It's really only Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Maine. Even if Democrats won all of those, they would still have to flip 2 more seats. After that, it looks like they really have no targets. But obviously, we're way too far out. Maybe Iowa comes on the map, and maybe Texas. Anything could happen in these primaries. Anything could happen in terms of scandal. The Trump administration is going to be a key factor as well. I expect some of these to change. But early polling and early speculation a lot of times doesn't pan out. Name ID and incumbency advantage are important things when you're talking about something that's more than a year and a half away. For Republicans, they're first going to want to make sure they hold North Carolina and Maine. Then they're going to try to get Brian Kemp to dip into Georgia, maybe make something happen in Michigan, and then they can see what happens in Minnesota. But it looks like it's going to be kind of a multi-year cycle here if the Democrats are going to regain control of the Senate. So again, some of these ratings are borderline, and I can't go through every state. Like in Louisiana, Bill Cassidy looks like he's facing a primary challenge there as well. But the state is so red, it shouldn't really matter in the general election. But anyway, for right now, these are the first ratings I've got for the 2026 Senate elections. So let me know in the comments, do you completely agree with this map, or do you maybe disagree with 1 or 2 states, or maybe somehow you disagree with 5 or 6 of these ratings? Let me know what you're looking at the most on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.